It turned out to be a solid signing and a good addition to this team, Freddie Galvis was, and it was sad to see the Blue Jays not try to get an asset back for Freddie Galvis in trade deadline, but there wasn't any suitors for Freddie Galvis, and I was wondering why they didn't want if they didn't trade him, why they put him on waivers and not wait till the offseason, pick up his cheap option, then maybe an explore trade in the offseason. But maybe Blue Jays and Freddie Galvis had a handshake agreement in when they signed the contract that when Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, and Vladdy come up, there won't be a spot for Freddie, so they'll let me go onto a new team, and maybe that was the agreement, and Freddie was not going to get so many at-bats down the stretch with all the young guys. Maybe September call-ups, Urania comes up, some Santiago Espinal comes up, so Freddie wasn't going to get much at-bats, but so maybe they did him a favor, so on that aspect, I believe it's good, but this new waiver system is quite odd, but I wish it was kind of like last year, we could still make trades.
Yeah, and once again, that rears back to rear its ugly head for the Blue Jays. Ken Giles, we mentioned on our last podcast 2 weeks ago that if there was still an August 31st trade deadline, they could have been able to trade him because he would have gotten right by then, so they could have traded him for the second pennant race, which would have brought him back a little more. So it's I guess it's sort of just opposite day with us about that. We talked about how much we liked the one trade deadline, and now it's coming back to bite us again. But anyway, I think this move was made for a PR standpoint to look good in public relations for the Blue Jays. Freddie Galvis, we mentioned having a very good year, decent year, but yeah, they couldn't trade him at the deadline. I think the reason why they really couldn't trade him at the deadline was because as good as Freddie Galvis has been for the Blue Jays, I doubt any contending team was willing to give him an everyday role where he would be getting everyday at-bats for them. So the Blue Jays were looking at locations where Freddie Galvis could get everyday playing time, and teams that were going to offer Freddie Galvis everyday playing time, like the Reds eventually would, are typically teams that aren't contending, so they wouldn't give anything up of substance for Freddie Galvis-like players. So once the deadline passed, they wanted to give him that everyday playing time, so they released him and eventually picked up by the Reds where he would be getting those everyday at-bats. And I think the reason why they didn't wait until the offseason was because they wanted to help Freddie out so that when he goes into the offseason, likely testing the free agency market, he would have a lot more value as an everyday player as opposed to not getting everyday at-bats for the Blue Jays here down the stretch. So I think it's a nice thing for the Blue Jays to do. I think it helps their PR standpoint after it might have taken a bit of a hit with the mess that happened the last year or so with Stroman and Josh Donaldson. So I think that helps. That helps improve their PR standpoint. And it's just a nice thing to do. I don't really make much of it. Freddie Galvis, as good as he was, really didn't have much value. I think at best he'd probably bring another Thomas Hatch. So really not much to make of the return that could have been for Freddie Galvis, but we like to thank Freddie. He had a nice year, and good luck in Cincinnati. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and Rob, one more thing. I believe if they did trade him, I believe they could even get a lottery ticket without throwing in money. And people are wondering why did Eric Sogard get traded instead of Freddie Galvis, but Eric Sogard was traded because he was making the MLB minimum, and he had more surplus value than Galvis at the time he was traded. And you can slot Eric Sogard anywhere you want, and we got two players to be named later for Eric Sogard, and we certainly don't know who those players are. And Freddie Galvis, since his trade to the Reds, is now 5 for 6 with a home run and 2 RBIs.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say on that prospect. But moving on, and we have 3 guys on the Blue Jays who didn't get off to the best starts, who have some tools that can be helpful, who have some clear deficiencies, and that's that neither of them really get on base, but they've all been playing very well lately. Those 3 guys are Brandon Drury, Teoscar Hernandez, and Randall Grichuk, and I'm going to go through all of them individually through their last 30 games. Brandon Drury's hitting .272 with an OPS of .847, 8 home runs and 19 RBIs in his last 30 games. Teoscar Hernandez has been crushing the ball, an OPS over 1,000 in his last 30 games with 11 home runs. And Randall Grichuk as well. 270 hit batting average, 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, and OPS of 865. So these are 3 guys who I think the Blue Jays were hoping would sort of stick around this season, and all of them got off to really brutal starts. Teoscar Hernandez was eventually sent to AAA earlier on in the year. Vladdy Jr was probably on the doorstep of being released sometime in late June when he was barely slugging above 600, having an OPS above 600 with an on-base in like the 250s. Randall Grichuk as well, after giving him that 5-year extension, really didn't get off to a good start, but it's good to see these 3 guys provide some value for the Blue Jays. They've all been playing very well the last 30 games, as I mentioned. Do you think that these last 2 or so months that they've been playing really well can perhaps translate into 2020? Do you see any of these guys really being part of the Blue Jays, like spot on the roster for the future?
I mean, Randall Grichuk, because we gave him that extension.
You started there by necessity.
Yeah, which I don't really agree on. I know you are.
Yeah.
You agree on that, I believe.
Because I'll explain why again. It's because Randall Grichuk, I think, if you have a corner outfielder who can play decent defense and hit 30 home runs and have a 2-win player, I think you're okay with that, and he's not getting paid all that much money, and he's still relatively young, so I still think I'm on board with that extension, but my take really didn't look good the first few months of the season.
Yeah, Randall Grichuk is on pace to break his MLB record for home runs, which I believe is 25. 25. So he should be able to break that with over a 1.5 month of baseball left. He's been looking pretty good as of late. If he can climb his average a bit closer to 250, 260, hit 25 to 28 home runs, that'd be a solid season for Randall Grichuk. So you could expect him to see back. You should expect him to see him back next season for the Jays. As for Vladdy Jr, I feel like he'll be back too. He'll just play the utility role of the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have lost Eric Sogard and now Freddie Galvis. Yet they do have Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, and Vladdy Jr, but they do need a backup infielder, utility man, and certainly Vladdy Jr would provide that. He has pop. We saw the Grand Slam in the Texas series. He's only hitting .227 after a really bad start to the season, but who didn't have a bad start to the season on the Jays? So give him some slack. He's only 26. He's about to turn 27 in, I believe, 6 days, so that's nice. But my hot take is Teoscar Hernandez. I believe the Jays try to trade him in the offseason. I agree. I don't see a spot for him next season on the Blue Jays. The outfield is way too crowded. I would like the Jays to give Anthony Alford a real chance in center field. Teoscar Hernandez should not be playing center field on this team right now. He's only hitting .223 with an on base of .299, just around his career numbers. So Teoscar Hernandez, while he does give a nice pop, he'll just be a bench bat on a contending team. So I believe the Jays will try to trade him, even if it's just for a lottery ticket. We have Derek Fisher, who personally is not that good, in my opinion, but they also have Anthony Alford in the minor leagues, and then Randall Grichuk, Vladdy Jr. So they have a lot of options in the minor leagues. Even you have Dalton Pompey, and Griffin Conine's going to come eventually up soon. So it's going to be best for the Blue Jays if they could just trade these guys right now. So that's just my take on Teoscar Hernandez.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think Randall Grichuk is going to be your corner outfielder for the future, and that extension justifies that the front office certainly believes that he will play that role. Vladdy Jr, it's good that he was able to come up and slug the way he has and sort of give Blue Jays fans a little more faith in him as an everyday left fielder come next year. That center field spot, a little murky. Randall Grichuk, he's played a bit of center field, but yeah, we've seen a lot of Teoscar Hernandez, a bit of Derek Fisher there, so I think that is certainly a cause for concern for the future. I don't think Teoscar Hernandez is necessarily that guy. I don't think he can really be an everyday major league player because he's just been so inconsistent on both sides of the ball in the, 2 years now that we've got to see him play every day. He does have great power, as it's proven evident throughout the last 30 games with 11 home runs. But also, at the beginning of the year, he really struggled. He went to AAA. He just couldn't hit whatsoever. And his defense, while it's been a lot better this year, Not too long ago, he was really terrible out there in the outfield. So I think the Blue Jays would be wise to look at other avenues for an outfielder, and would not shock me at all if Teoscar Hernandez ends up getting traded somehow, because I do think that he can be helpful, just not as an everyday outfielder, in my opinion. Moving on to the next topic, Rowdy Tellez was just called up. Can't remember what day exactly he was called up on, but he went 1 for 3 yesterday in the final game of the Texas series. Do you see this last, I guess, month and a half now as a tryout for Rowdy Tellez coming next year, or do you just think that he's just there to fill up the spot?
No, for sure, this is a tryout for Rowdy Tellez. We've always seen him as a DH, but I personally feel like he can be a first baseman for the Blue Jays. He certainly has a nice glove at first base, and he certainly has some pop. So the Blue Jays will want to replace Justin Smoke. Like I said in the, I believe, 2 podcasts ago, that we believe that he'll be back, Justin Smoke. The Jays will try to re-sign him. But the Jays will need a first baseman, and Rowdy Tellez is only 24 years old, and he will be the first baseman of the future, most likely. So, Rowdy Tellez, he went down to Buffalo over a month ago. I believe it was July 14th. He worked on his stance. He opened up a bit more, stand more tall at the plate, and I believe he hit upwards of 366 in Buffalo with an on-base OPS of 1100. So he certainly made some adjustments, and let's see if he can put them to the test in the major leagues, because we know what Rowdy Tellez can do. He did have a pretty rough start to league with only an on-base of 283 this season, an OPS of 717, average of 228. So let's see what Rowdy can do, and I'm pulling for the guy.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the point with Rowdy Tellez where he's seen enough seasoning. He's 24 years old. He's been through every level of the big leagues. He's hit in AAA. Now it's really time to see what he can do at the major league level and see what exactly he is, and if he's part of the future at all. I'm not so sure he necessarily is ever going to be an everyday first baseman for them, but who knows? And this month and a half left in the season will certainly justify whether he'll go into next season as a legitimate shot at being the everyday first baseman, or whether or not Justin Smoke will be back. But I think we've talked about Blue Jays offense at volumes so far on this podcast. Now let's go to the more irky side, the pitching side. With the trades of Marcus Stroman and Aaron Sanchez, the Blue Jays really have a bunch of TBDs in the rotation. Brian Baracki, another guy who went down with an injury, so we see a lot of Sean Reed-Foley's, Thomas Panones, Wilmer Font as the opener. Jacob Waguespack was also thrown in there. We see Brock Stewart making some, not starts, but pitching in as the opener, after the opener. So really not necessarily a lot that you feel good about there. Do you see any sort of optimism on the pitching side?
So an interesting thing I saw on Twitter was, which reliever would you want on the Blue Jays back for next season? And surprisingly, a lot of Blue Jays fans said pretty much none of them. But it's been that bad. I misphrased that. It was, if you could pick one pitcher to be back for next season, out of all the pitching staff, rotation and bullpen included, which one would you choose most? And surprisingly, most of the people chose either Tim Mayza, Justin Schaefer, but I would say Wilmer Font, and Wilmer Font leading into the point has been working effectively as a nice opener for the Blue Jays. He's come in, he had a struggling start with the New York Mets and Tampa Bay Rays in his career, but he came on and has 61 innings under his belt this season. Not all with the Jays, but 63 strikeouts, which is nice. In his most recent outing, he went against Texas, I believe it was Tuesday, 2 innings of work. He did walk 2, but he did strike out 2. And the most notable outing for me was that one game in Tampa where he struck out 5 and 2.1 innings pitched. So, as an opener, you come in, just dial it up in the zone, and Wilmer Font can do that. He has a fastball, 97 miles per hour. But certainly, you guys know that we love the opener. Me and Rob, we love the opener, but certainly how long is it going to go? The Jays certainly need some rotation help. And this offseason, the Blue Jays do have some money to spend, and hopefully they spend it. And would you say the Jays should go after Gerrit Cole?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gerrit Cole, likelihood of him ever coming to Toronto is very, very slim, if any. If there's any chance, I'm taking the under. I don't think he's going to